Hi, everybody. I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're doing our regular Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific time, where we take your questions about U.S. immigration law live. Again, I'm a U.S. immigration attorney. This is not intended as individual legal guidance. For that, we need to sit and talk in private and look at your documents, all that kind of stuff. But I've been taking out this time for several years now, maybe 5 years probably, to just hear what you all have questions about, to talk about immigration, the areas I'm more familiar with that I handle on a day-to-day basis, to give you a better understanding, because there's so much misinformation, confusing information out there by lawyers, by non-lawyers, by the government even. There's a lot going on, so I'll try to share what my knowledge is so have you a better time going through this horrible process called legal immigration, and let alone the illegal stuff. With legal immigration, it's very difficult, just because of all the headaches that exist and just what can happen. So as you'll see, the questions that do come up here live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok, which just keeps shutting down, I got to set up. We'll take your questions as we always do to get us started. Now, what's in the news of the immigration law? A lot of bad stuff, as you know. One of them is the changes in the citizenship requirement. To get approved with that, they're going to have more stringent requirements of looking into your background for good moral character. The problem with all this is there's no standards for good moral character. So what inevitably happened here, which happened 20 years ago when they had this standard, was each office is going to make up their own thing. And so there's going to be a lot of inconsistencies and lawsuits. So it's going to go nowhere. Plus, with that, they said they're going to start visiting people at their house or visiting their neighbors and their employers to see if they're a good person or not. And that's going to create a lot of delay, a lot of extra costs, and not going to be really be able to make a difference, because the stuff they're going to look for is obvious in all the technological evidence that they have about their work, career. And a lot of times neighbors nowadays in America, they don't know who your neighbors are. So, and who knows, it might be your enemy, or you might not want it to know you're going through immigration process. You might, so it's going to create a lot of havoc, but that's obviously the intent. And we'd see what everything's going on. But that's why you got to be very careful and cautious when you file for citizenship. Do thorough reviews of how you got the green card in the first place, your background being good. There's weird nuances in immigration law where you think it's not a problem where it is. And 99% of the time, the problems that people think they have to come to and worried about, that's not the problem. And then I identify something that is a problem that they didn't even realize it was an issue. So it's really bizarre, but that's law. That's why we have lawyers, fortunately or unfortunately. That's what lawyers do. If it was really a fake job or something, it would have been gone away. I mean, there's some areas of jobs that are fake that people are still working on, but with immigration law, it's I have a career about it. I write books and guides and courses on it. Just there's a lot going on. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's just very complicated, and it just gets more so. If you want to see the other stuff I write about in my magazine, it's part of a company I have called the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox. And then we have a magazine, a podcast, all this kind of stuff. It's more technical, so not everyone's going to be interested in it, but definitely check it out. ImmigrationLawyersToolbox.com's website. We publish a magazine there, podcasts, courses, seminars, and the like. So let's get started with some questions. Sharp asks, valid B1, B2 visa, I-130 is pending. Is it okay to transit through the USA? It generally is okay if you have a transit ticket, you're going or something like that, you're not entering the United States in particular. Final decision will be up to the officer, the CBP, Customs and Border Protection Officer you deal with. But if you're really transiting through the United States, you have a ticket somewhere, you go on vacation, this and that, and you have that evidence, it's unlikely that you'll have a problem. Daniel asks, hello, attorney, how long does it take for green card to arrive once the case is approved? Typically, it's 1 to 2 weeks, but sometimes it takes 4 to 8 weeks, and sometimes it gets lost in the mail or USCIS loses it. So 9 out of 10 times, 1 or 2 weeks, and then 10% of the time it's unknown. It's unknown. Path to Divergence asks, have you seen any of the new good moral character standards being enforced in various field offices? What are they asking for? No, I just had a client go through citizenship today and last week and stuff. So since the ruling came, that since the update to the citizenship requirements for good moral character were made about, essentially like, 10 days ago or something like that, in practice, I've not heard of or seen there be any changes in this regard. So we don't know when that's going to happen. There has to be training on it, so it's going to take a bit of time probably. But when that cutoff date is going to happen, when it starts, I don't know. But so far in the last 10 days, I haven't seen or heard anything that would show there was a change yet. Jessica says, other than change the policy, but in practice, no changes yet. Jessica says, my husband got a misdemeanor DUI. What do you recommend? He should contact the lawyer as soon as possible and see what the charges were, what the facts around it were. They may be changing the rules regards to immigrants and DUIs, but it hasn't become law yet. Just one DUI itself is typically not a problem, especially if like it was or speeding or you didn't hit anybody or that kind of stuff. And they look at the totality of circumstances, so it's still approvable. but it just gets murky. So you want to have all the paperwork related to it, but you should have an immigration attorney to talk through with it and help you through that case, just to keep an eye out. That's for adjustment of status green card. Now, if you go for citizenship and the DUIs within the last 5 years, they may deny for that. Backpack says, please, how long before you get your decision after submitting your RFE? An RFE, a request for evidence, is when you submit a case and USCIS asks for more evidence and you submit a response with more evidence or information. How long does it take to get a decision after that? There's no time frame. It just depends on whenever they get around to it. Bahari says, how long can they keep them in a detention center? It depends on what kind of case it is, but essentially it's indefinite. There's this whole ICE keeping people in detention has been an issue because it creates a loophole where people could be held indefinitely in immigration detention. It happens a couple of times. It's going to be more often now, but it's a rare case. But it was a way to get around the protections you get if you're going to like federal prison or if you're going to state prison. Then immigration detention becomes this like black hole. So essentially, it's indefinite for depending on the case. But it just depends on again the case. Singh says, is that the new rule when I arrived at JFK airport and officers don't put a stamp on my passport? Yeah, it's been about 2 years. So I don't know how new it is, but it's been about 2 years or so that when you enter the United States, they don't stamp your passport to speed things up. They did that. What you have to do is go take your passport information, go to a website called I-94. This is a Customs and Border Protection CBP website. And once you go there for the I-94, it's a special form that lists when you came in, what your name is, what your passport info is, and what visa you entered in, and how long that has duration. It's very important because sometimes, typically, when you come, like, for example, on a tourist visa, B1, B2 tourist visa, you get 6 months or 180 days. But sometimes they may give you less time. So what you always want to do is go and check on that I-94 website for CBP's website to see how much time you actually got. And this becomes important, especially for work visas, because people don't pay attention, but sometimes their passport only has like 4 or 5 months left on it when they enter the U.S., and CBP will only give you that much time to be in the United States, even though your H-1B or your O-1 or your L-1 has more time on it. And people don't pay attention to that, and all of a sudden they overstay by months before they realize that their stay had expired. There's ways to fix that. It's going to be hard during this administration, but that's why every time you enter the United States, unless you're a citizen or a green card holder, any visa essentially, not an immigrant visa, you should go check out your I-94 to make sure you came in on the right category, because they make errors too. They put the wrong category in. I've had a person come on a student visa, and then they came on an H-1B work visa. It's fixable when these kind of errors happen, but you just want to watch out for that kind of stuff and take it from there. Bahar says, withholding case. I don't do withholding or detention work myself, so I don't want to give more detailed information about that. But when you say how long can it keep someone in a detention center, it's possibly indefinite. Now it's going to be like 0.01% of the cases, 0.001. But that's the official answer, a technical answer. But most of the time they get bond. I guess they can't get bond. It depends on also their history. So if they have criminal history, they can't get bond. If they're within the last 2 years, potentially won't. This stuff of detention is really changing a lot. There's a lot of lawsuits happening. There was just a lawsuit that happened where a judge in D.C. stopped the government from doing expedited removal on cases. On certain kinds of cases. So this is a fast-moving field, but it really depends on the facts of the case, and I'm not an expert on detention, so I don't want to talk too much about that. All right, let me fix my camera a little bit. All right, let's go to the next question. LaShonda asks, is there any risk for people with pending VAWA? Yeah, there's risk if you get picked up. VAWA itself, the Violence Against Women Act Form I-360, pending or approved until you get the green card, is not status. So you're technically out of status, or they call it illegal. And that gives the opportunity for the government to pick you up and detain you or put you in immigration court. Now, historically, they wouldn't do that because they'll say, okay, it's not nice. Unless you get arrested or have criminal issues, they're just not going to do anything about it. But under the Trump administration, this changed. So they're not giving, it's called deferred action, essentially, for people that are in VAWA, U visas, even if they have a green card case pending. They're issuing notices to appear in immigration court for removal. It's still rare. It's not a widespread thing, but it's happening enough where it's on our radar. And it's a really nasty thing that they're doing, but it is happening. Mbake says, I have a temporary I-551 pending I-751. Can I travel? Generally, people can travel if they have their expired green card with the I-751 receipt that's an extension. Whether you could travel yourself, I don't know enough about your background to be able to give a recommendation. That's why I can't give individual legal advice here. But most people can travel. And actually, this specific question, I just did a TikTok on it because I've been getting asked about it a lot recently. I think there's a lot of bad TikToks, videos, and misinformation going out there. Most people can travel in these circumstances. Again, I just did a TikTok and an Instagram and YouTube. Everybody watching this is a short video. It's 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes. I just recorded a couple of hours ago. I put out there explaining your specific question. But essentially, you have to see if you have any criminal history, if your case is going to be denied or it's in immigration court, or you have some errors in the past immigration history that's problematic. But if those are clear, the chance of having problems are very low. It's always up to the CBP officer at the airport, but chance of problems are very low. Singh says, is a green card holder, same thing, they don't put the stamp on a passport? Yeah, they don't do that. Mohammed says, they gave me 10-year ban after we missed plane. They gave me 5-year ban, which is right. You got to see what the paperwork they gave you. I don't know. I don't know what missed plane mean, but you got to see what it is. If you really want, you contact the port of entry and ask them which one it is. There'll be a transcript they give you. It's usually listed in there. User 349 says, with the current administration, is it safe to travel out of the country with I-751 and F-400 pending? So I'm getting this question a lot. Is it safe? Oh, safety is relative. So is it safe to get in the car and drive down the street? And most people say it's safe, and it generally is, but people do get in car accidents. So is it safe without knowing all the information about your background? I can't say. For most people, it's okay. But if you're worried to ask this question, don't bother traveling. L30 asks, is USCIS processing and approving I-485s based on asylum, and how fast? Timelines are all over the place. I don't know how fast it is, and they've restarted approving those cases, but they are slower than other cases. Blank asks, when will F2A cases going to stop being backlogged? That's not up to me on this. I don't know. Pinky asks, hey, if F3 filed U.S. birth certificate, not written, mother name written, and passport, can they accept? You need to have a proper birth certificate. So if your mom's not listed on there, that could be problematic. They may have you do blood testing, but you got to find out why the reason is and get other documents listing your mom, like school records, vaccine records, medical records, baptism records, religious records, and all the stuff we can like that. But again, it's up to the government, but they might want a blood test, and you got to figure out why her name wasn't on there. That's not typical. A father's name, yeah, it happens, but mother's name not being on the birth certificate, that's not typical. So I need to look into that more. Imagina says, I have a weird case. I became a U.S. citizen. Then I received a letter that if I don't call USCIS, my case will be denied. So there's a lot of fraud things happen like that, but consulting immigration are in private. But somehow people are getting other people's information about their personal immigration stuff and, doing this kind of thing to hurt them. That is happening pretty widespread. American JT says, asylum renewal work permit time. I don't know what it is right now. They're going to be trying to change the laws on it. But, you got to, I think you have to wait 120 days for your file. A renewal. Typically, work permit renewals have to happen within like 6 months, but I don't handle asylum cases typically, so I don't want to advise something I don't do on a day-to-day basis. P says, does USCIS take a scrutiny of the M400 case if it is denied for abandonment? No, I mean, they'll scrutinize the case anyway, so if you have issues, they're going to pay attention to it. Whether you went to the interview or you let it go, there's a chance they're going to look over it and analyze it. So it's up to them how much they feel like it. They feel like dealing with it. Mike says, hi, approve asylum in June. Do I need to wait 1 year to file I-485 or file now? You don't need to wait 1 year. Just the green card has to be approved after 1 year. Typically, I say, wait 5 or 6 months and file, because it'll probably take that another 5 or 6 months to get the case done. So that'll get around the year mark. But generally, you can file immediately for your green card, but they can't approve the case before the 1 year mark. The worry is just that they mistakenly approve it too early or something like that, or they just deny it because it's too early. It's some weird stuff they could do. But again, I don't typically handle asylum cases. In this scenario, people come to us. Usually, we have done these cases, but they've been asylee for 9 months. And so at that point, by the time we file, a decision comes, a year is going to have passed. Imagina says, I was a resident for 3 years, became a citizen when waiting for my green card, never received the work. Never received a work V, and then I'm not sure why you get a work visa. I think what you're saying. I'm not sure what your question is, cut off, but if you're a citizen, you're a citizen. Amerijas says, okay, thanks, you're welcome. Mike says, hi, approve asylum in June. Okay, we already answered your question, Mike. All right, Lily Anaxgar, thanks for joining us. One of our regulars. Good to see your name again. And everyone else, feel free to shoot out your questions. I'm Immigration Lawyer John Khosravi. If you want to schedule a private consultation, please go to our website, jqqlaw.com/contact. That's jqqlaw.com/contact. Fill in the boxes there with your name and contact info and a little bit about your case so we'll see what you're dealing with. And we'll reply within 24 hours, if not within a few hours, about the next steps you need to take for scheduling a consultation or just what our thoughts are on that initial information that you give us. Now, if you're interested in a marriage or a fiancé visa case, we have a guide called the Ultimate Marriage Green Card Guide. Go to marriageimmigrationlaw.com. Again, that's marriageimmigrationlaw.com. And check out the guide. It's a lot of information, 50-plus pages that break what's going on. That could be really helpful if you give an understanding before you talk with an immigration lawyer, because you don't want to go ask easy questions from an immigration lawyer. You want to ask the hard ones. Now, secondly to that, we've just launched, the first time I'm publicly talking about it, the Ultimate Citizenship Naturalization Guide. 50 plus pages here too of a breakdown of what the citizenship naturalization process entails and some addendums, breakdowns. I'm going to keep adding to it, but this is really, really going out there. If you want to download this guide, the citizenship guide, the naturalization guide, go to our website, jqklaw.com/citizenship. There'll be a place you can put your info in and get a copy of it emailed to you. It's emailed to you, the guide. Again, the website is jqklaw.com/citizenship. And if it doesn't work, just email me and I'll try to figure it out because we just launched this. And so I'm still working up the kinks, but I think it should work. It'll be a 50 plus page guide going through the citizenship process, estimate timelines, what to watch out for, all this kind of stuff. It's not individual legal guidance, but I'll give you a better idea before you talk to a lawyer about the situation is. I think it's going to help a lot of people. So we have the two guides, marriageimmigrationlaw.com for the green card guide, marriage green card guide or fiance visa, and the ultimate citizenship guide at jqklaw.com/citizenship. Lillian asks, hi, John. Everything went fine. I have my green card. I'm fine living with husband in the U.S. Go, congrats. I want to thank you for your information along the way. It's been valuable. God bless. God bless you too, Leah. Thank you so much. I'm glad I was able to provide some service. And thanks for coming on the show and always participating and stuff. It's much appreciated. If you had time, leave us a 5-star review. You don't have to say anything. Just leave 5 stars on our Google page. Type in JQK Law on Google and then just say 5-star review. It helps out a lot, the business. I really appreciate it. But other than that, God bless. Be safe. And put on your timeline, on your calendar to file for citizenship. If you're married to a U.S. citizen, you could file after 3 years of your entry, or really 90 days before the 3-year mark. So as long as you're married, living together, and satisfy the other requirements, file for citizenship as soon as possible. And be careful. Make sure you got the proper type of green cards. It wasn't, if you're supposed to get a conditional 2-year green card, you got that. Or if it was a 10-year green card, you got that. It's based on when you enter the United States. If you got your green card through the embassy, if your marriage is 2 years old yet or not, or younger or older. So be mindful of that kind of stuff. But the rest, God bless, be safe, and thanks for sharing that wonderful information. Maury says, how long is an I-130 for parent of U.S. citizen from inside the U.S. taking right now? I think you're saying adjustment of status. That's 5 to 10 months average. Could be faster. It could be longer. Maury says, how long is we are answering your question. How to join the call, Liz? We don't join calls here. We just kind of take your written questions. P says, how soon to apply for marriage-based adjustment of status after getting marriage certificate? The timeline after getting the marriage certificate doesn't matter. We typically will file immediately once you get the marriage certificate. It depends on other factors about your status and your backgrounds and how much evidence you have and all this kind of stuff. So that's the least important thing to focus on. Singh says, green card holder is same thing. Immigration officer didn't put the stamp in the passport. Yeah, you don't need it. They don't put a stamp in the passport. TikTok's telling me, remind everybody, share this with your friends. It's live so they get access to it too. And that Amori says 11 months. Yeah, that happens too. 1 or 2 years even, still normal. Jessica said, do you think HR 875 will get approved? That's politics. I don't know. TikTok says, how long will it take before my wife will get a green card for arriving on I-130? I-130 doesn't get you a green card. It's I-485 or consular processing. So download our guide, TikTok Old Man Smitty, marriageimmigrationlaw.com. And it'll go through it. The I-130 itself just means prove that we have a relationship, but it's not directly tied to getting a green card itself. Sid, who says, entered July an F1 Canadian citizen, getting married on October 30th. Relationship, what is green card time? 3 to 12 months average. Liz says, can you challenge misrepresentation without a waiver if you don't qualify? It depends on who made the misrepresentation claim and who you could contact about it and how open they are. So it's not impossible, but it's not easy at all. TikTok wants to be, okay, thank you for your answer. You're welcome. And thank you for the gift badge too. Adam says, is the transfer of a pending I-485 from the National Benefits Center's local field office an indicator of anything, or is it vague? It's vague. It may mean they're moving your case forward to the embassy for interview, but it's still pretty vague. It could mean a lot. It could mean nothing. And it's hard for us to say. Jam says, can someone with an expired K2 visa get a marriage-based green card? Yeah, I mean, K2 visa is a child of a K1, a fiance visa holder, so that's unrelated. If you never use it, disappeared, and you then get married to a green card, you can get a green card as possible. Nelly says, can I get my mom a green card through PIP, I think? MPIP with... So it depends. We need to know what kind of issues your mom has, her background, and admissibility issues. So maybe, but a lot more information is needed. Shira says, can I travel on I-90 stamp? The green card stamp is like a green card. If it's done properly, it's not expired, all that kind of stuff. I got to see it for myself, but it should be possible in most cases. Held by Lisa says, hi, thanks for live video. I'm married after 4 months of knowing each other, and they got divorced after 11 months due to my spouse control behavior and emotional abuse. I've had cases like this. It's worked, but it's, sometimes it may hassle you and not believe you. So you got to really protect it. So I have proof such as WhatsApp message, a police report. I have all the joint documents, photo history, travel itinerary, divorce is finalized. I mean, it's not bad. Just up to USCIS or the government how they want to deal with it. Do you think you have a good chance for removal conditions? I haven't seen your documents, so I can't say good or bad and a not existing client or something like that. But you have no choice. You got to do what you got to do. And secondly, you have generally good documents. But the thing is, I get people saying, I have all these documents, and then they come to my office, they show me the documents, and the documents are vague or missing names, or it doesn't say anything on them. They say, I have bank account together, bring a bank statement, and no one's name's on it. So that's why I can't rely on what people tell me. I have to see what the documents say. But if that's true, you probably have a good case, but you have to need the whole story. We just got to get more information. I can't tell you have a good case or not based on just an Instagram message like this, but these are the reasons you have lawyers to talk with in private and take it from there. User 76 says, petitioner to be scheduled for biometrics for I-130 for spouse living abroad. Is that normal? So recently they started doing biometrics for some I-130 cases. I'm not sure why they're doing it for spouse living abroad. Double check your case and make sure you didn't mark it as an adjustment case as opposed to consular processing. If you did, that's a major disaster. You got to fix quickly. You go to page 7 or 8, the top right on the form, written form, online form. I'm not sure where it'll be, but you got to make sure you listed that's going to be consular processing. You didn't leave it blank, or you didn't say you're doing the case in the U.S. if your spouse is living abroad, because you shouldn't be getting U.S.-based biometrics. That doesn't make sense for the applicant. A petition to be scheduled for I-130. That's might be a new Trump thing that's happening. That's not typical, but that can happen, especially if you have any arrest history or something like that. But typically, it doesn't happen. But they're just changing everything up right now. URK says, hello, sir. What is the timeline for I-130 consular processing in India? Depends on what kind of case you have and luck. Snipe says, how long to get a green card? Just saying I-130 doesn't help. We need a lot more information. Snipe says, how long to get a green card on VAWA after getting case approved? Sometimes years. User 76 says, petition to be scheduled for biometrics. We already answered your question, User 76. And thank you for the badge. Snipe says, we answer Snipe's question. Held says, do you think I have a good answer your question? You probably do, but again, I have to review your case. URK, about your question about timelines for I-130 consular processing. So is the I-130 done or not? If it's done, you're at the embassy stage. Go to a website called DOS space IV space tools, and then look for Mumbai, which most green card cases are done in India, and then specify if it's an immediate relative case, a family-based preference case, or employment-based. It'll give you an idea of when your documents are qualified with the National Visa Center, how long out they're scheduling interviews for. So that'd be a helpful tool there. But it's, again, the way where you post your question, it's hard to see where you are in the process, what kind of case it is. I have to ask like 3 more questions to get to the bottom of it. And while I do that, there's a bunch of people going to start asking questions. So we're going to end the show pretty soon. I've had a long day. I might need to take a break. But if you had some last questions, or let me know. I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi. I come here on Tuesdays, 4 p.m. Pacific time to take questions live about general U.S. immigration stuff. And then if you want to schedule a private consultation, go to our website, jqqlaw.com/contact. That's jqqlaw.com/contact. Nasser says, hello, past the interview on July 8th, I-485 still don't receive notice from USCIS. That's when a little bit more, a month and a half. It's getting to a point where it's too long, but it's not necessarily too long. Sometimes cases will take a month. Maybe write a letter to that office and say, attention, whoever was in the interview, can you please help us? But I need to know more about your case. Your case is children under 21 and unmarried. Are you a U.S. citizen or a green card holder? URK, the petitioner, children U.S. citizen. Okay, you said children of U.S. citizen. Okay, so under 21. So that's an immediate relative case. That shouldn't be too long, but are you documentarily qualified yet? Banclef says, denied I-485 because jurisdiction have order of removal. Does a Calderon settlement apply to me? I don't know. I don't specialize in those kind of cases. I have some cases where we closed the court case and we did adjustment of status, but Calderon settlement, stuff like that, removal orders, my office does not focus on cases with removal hearings history, so I don't advise on that stuff. So your Arcami, let me know if you're documentarily qualified, when that was, and I'll look up your answer really quick in the few minutes we have right now. DOS IV tools. You go to the Department of State's website. Documentarily qualified means that the National Visa Center contacted you and asked you to upload some documents, pay a fee and upload documents. Once you upload the documents, they accepted it. They'll send you an email saying no further stuff needed. We got your documents. You're documentarily qualified. And then you're put in line for an embassy interview. This is all written out. So this is one of the reasons you should have an immigration at the consular processing step, which a lot of people don't, because they create problems for themselves. They create more delays that are unnecessary because the government's made this process unnecessarily complicated. But you have an immediate relative case in Mumbai, And right now, or Bombay as it used to be called, right now they're scheduling interviews for people that were documentarily qualified in June 2025. So it's going to be some time, probably 3 to 6 months, depending on when you're documentarily qualified. Van Cliff, you answered your question. Chalo says, I-130 approved, I-485 actively reviewed for a month now. Should I worry? You shouldn't worry yet. This kind of stuff does happen. But if it goes another month, you should start talking with the immigration attorney. If you have to talk with your immigration attorney right now to see if there's any particular issues. But sometimes this happens and it's just annoying. But we got to see. The best thing to do is have a lawyer go through your history to see if there's an issue. And then that way you'll know whether to worry or not. And sometimes there's nothing. It just takes a while. How long does it take? There's no fixed time. Usually it's a week or two, sometimes a month or two, and sometimes it takes years. And that's when it gets either lost or doing an investigation into your case. Debanshri asks, can a green card holder file for a spouse to do adjustment of status? They technically can, but the timelines won't allow it. The spouse will need to maintain status in the United States long enough, and that's hard to do if they're on a B2, B1, B2 tourist visa. They need to have some other kind of visa. And another problem is that eventually they'll go out of status while the case is pending. Historically, that won't matter. But under the Trump administration, they may pick them up and send them to deportation because of it. So it's really, really bad. PO is December. Chalo, what was your previous question? I'm not sure what PO means. So sorry. Okay. La Maria says, what happens during a master's meeting? What can I want to expect going without a lawyer? Master's hearing is like essentially in criminal court. You say I'm guilty or innocent, and you schedule a date. If you don't have a lawyer, you say I need to get one. They may give you a continuance, may or may not. Depends how hard judges. But it's when you plead your initial case and you say what you need to do and all this kind of stuff. It's better to have a lawyer. Washwa says, hello, LPR parents sponsoring child who is over 21 is in the U.S. I want to just prove what's next. Well, there's delays in that. You got to see if your priority date is approved, and your child cannot be married. They must remain single, but they need to maintain status in the United States to be able to adjust. They need to not be married, and it depends on their priority date. So you need to look up the priority date for this F2B category. The priority date is the date you filed the Form I-130. You got to see what dates they're working on with the visa bulletin, and also check the USCIS visa bulletin as well to see if USCIS is accepting the date of filing versus the final action date. As you see, it's getting pretty technical, so it's best to just consult with us, schedule a private consultation. We'll give you all the answers you need in this scenario so you can make a good decision. The website is jqqlaw.com/contact to reach out to us first, jqqlaw.com/contact. Jeff Fanta says, for I-130 to be approved, is there estimated time accurate? No. But Maria says, do you read your charges during a master's? Yes. What should one say? It depends on what your facts are. I can't tell you anything here, Maria. That's not something anyone can tell you at a live show or on the internet or something. You got to look over your background, what your defenses are, and argue that. So there's a lot more information needed. It's like a whole case to get into it. But everybody, thank you so much for joining us again. I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi. If you would like to schedule a private consultation, go to our website, jqqlaw.com/contact, and then schedule time. We have another question about I-751 and travel. I did a TikTok on this, so check out our most recent TikTok video because you're asking on TikTok, but it's also on YouTube and Instagram. It's a question I'm getting a lot for some reason. If you have removal conditions pending, you can travel. There's a lot of bad, even immigration lawyers are saying this. It's not correct that you do that. So having said that, God bless, be safe. I'll see you all next Tuesday, and that's about it. Bye-bye.